This is Osu, a rhythm game about clicking circles to the beat. It's been around since 2007, and millions of people have played it. There's just one problem. There are two versions of the game, and the community is split down the middle. This is Osu Stable, the original client. This version has been around since the beginning, but this is Osu Lazer. It's a newer client. It's a complete rewrite of Osu, an initiative that the lead developer Peppy started in 2015. It's meant to become the replacement of Osu Stable. For years, Stable dominated the playing field, but just recently, for the first time in Osu history, Osu Lazer had more players than Osu Stable. Both clients share the same songs, the same ranked system, and even the same leaderboard. But they're not the same game, and that has caused a rift in the Osu community. Should you play Lazer or should you play on Stable? That's the problem. The Lazer problem. Osu Stable and Osu Lazer have the same core mechanics: circles, sliders, and spinners. For both versions, the objective is to click these objects to the beat. On the surface, they should be the exact same, but in some ways they're completely different. But how? Well, let's start with the most obvious change: sliders. In Osu Stable, as long as you hit a slider's head, you get a perfect hit. In Lazer, that's not the case. Hit it early or late, and you'll get a 300, 100, or 50, depending on how accurate you were. This is called slider accuracy. In Stable, missing a slider head or a slider tick doesn't actually count as a miss. It just gets counted as a 100 or a 50. You will lose your combo, but it doesn't add to your miss count. In Lazer, missing a slider head is counted as a real miss. In Stable, a missed slider end just becomes a 100. In Lazer, slider ends are treated as their own judgment. Missing one won't break your combo or count as a miss, but they'll still hurt your accuracy. Slider ends now have their own display on the scorecard, showing exactly how many slider ends you hit out of how many there were on the map, completely separate from the 100s or 50s. Then there's the scoring system itself. Stable uses a combo-based score system called Score V1, and then there's Score V2 for tournaments. Lazer uses its own system entirely, closer to a Score V3, and it's far more accuracy-based, with a max score cap of 1,000,000 without mods. Now, here's a big one. In Stable, there's a mechanic called Note Lock. Note Lock keeps your timing stuck on the most recent unhit note, so if you miss a note that has notes just after it, you'll keep missing. This is called a chain miss. Even if you're full comboing the rest of the pattern, it will count as misses.
Fuck me!
In Lazer, that lock is moved a note after, effectively removing it. This makes stream maps and high-speed jump maps much more lenient and easier to pass. Now, let's zoom out. We know Osu Lazer and Osu Stable exist, and we know that they're different and how they're different, but that doesn't explain why Osu got revamped in the first place. I said in the beginning of this video that development for Osu Lazer started in 2015, but that's not exactly the full story. In fact, Osu Lazer was just a UI revamp at one point. However, as the lead developer Peppy started working on the UI revamp, he realized something about his code. The codebase for Osu Stable was absolutely messy and in terrible shape. That meant Osu was feature-locked. New ideas and mechanics, and even the thought of a new mode was impossible, just because the foundation couldn't support building anything new on top of it.
Adding new stuff on top of a pile of shit, to me, just seems like a bad idea. So I would want to, really refine things first before we go about adding new stuff to the game.
So, Peppy was stuck with two decisions. Try to fix the old messy codebase, or create an entirely new one. This was no easy decision either. In fact, he called together a team of developers to decide. Their call? Start a completely new codebase. Hence, Osu Lazer as its own client was born. From day one, Peppy made a choice that shaped the philosophy of the new client. Osu Lazer would be completely open source. Anyone could read the code, and anyone could build on top of what had already been built. That also meant if something were to ever happen to Peppy, Osu wouldn't go with him. The first public preview of Lazer came out in February 2017. In 2018, the first public betas began rolling out. It wasn't until June 5th, 2026 that Osu Lazer finally overtook Stable in player count, almost an entire decade after the first public betas released in 2018. Well, why? It's complicated. There's a myriad of reasons that people don't switch to Osu Lazer. A lot of players just don't like how the new UI looks. The menus are laid out a bit differently, the visual style is different. If you've spent years getting used to Stable's UI, Lazer's UI can feel quite clunky. Since slider heads are judged like circles now, this same play can have worse accuracy than it would on Stable. Then there's one complaint I see a lot. Input feels different. A lot of players just say Lazer feels different to play. Some say their aim feels off. A bigger issue in my opinion is competitive. Most major tournaments, like OSU World Cup, still run on stable. If you want to compete at the highest level, you have to play on stable. It's still where most of the real competition actually happens. Above all, though, possibly the biggest reason people don't switch to Lazer is the ideology of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For many people with this mentality, stable is what they've played for years. If it still works, they don't have a reason to switch. Some of these reasons make perfect sense. In fact, I shared some of them myself. I was originally a never Lazer person. I've been an OSU player since 2015, and stable was once the only thing I knew. My best and worst moments were all done on OSU stable. I almost reached top 500 global using it. I had tried Lazer a few times before, but it never really stuck. Over time, more and more Lazer developments started chipping away at that. The first was note lock. One of the initiatives of Lazer was to remove note lock. On stable, you could miss entire streams just because you missed one note, and on Lazer, you just didn't have that problem. That alone made playing stream maps more bearable. Then, Lazer started awarding performance points. Now you could actually gain rank on Lazer. Finally, there was audio latency. Lazer added support for Wasapi Audio on Windows, a different audio engine that's much lower latency. For years, I over-optimized my OSU stable to be the lowest latency I can manage. I used Real, I turned off audio effects, I did anything I could think of to reduce audio latency. Wasapi Audio support for Lazer was far better than anything I could conjure for OSU stable, outside of switching to Linux, which I wasn't exactly ready for yet. Editor Relic here, I lied. I'm dual booting CachyOS for OSU and then Windows for editing and Valorant, so yeah. Anyway, back to the video. One by one, the reasons I had to stay on OSU stable started running out. Wasapi Audio support was the final nail in the coffin, and then I officially switched to OSU Lazer. There was a small learning curve. After all, I was on one client for so many years, so I had to get used to the differences with OSU Lazer. But after getting used to the UI and various other small differences, OSU Lazer just felt natural. So, about that one complaint, about OSU Lazer feeling different. It's true. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't feel the same way, but here's the thing. It doesn't last. For me, it was about 30 minutes. 30 minutes of feeling a little bit off, and then it just felt normal. It just felt like OSU again. That was the answer to the Lazer feels different problem. And that's not to say that it'll be the same amount of time for you. But if you can just get through the adjustment period, you will get used to OSU Lazer. But all that leaves one question. Should you play OSU Lazer or OSU Stable? Before that though, this is actually my first video on this channel. If you've made it this far, genuinely thank you. I've got a lot more of this kind of stuff planned. Please consider liking and subscribing. But anyway, here's my actual answer. If you're new to OSU, the answer is very simple. Play Lazer. Don't even think about playing Stable. You haven't built the years of muscle memory that tends to hold people back from playing on Lazer instead. Lazer is actively being developed. It is the majority client now, and it's where OSU's future is heading. There's no reason to start your journey on a client that's eventually going to be left behind. And if you're old gen like me and you've been here for years, my answer is a little different. I'm not telling you to switch permanently, but I'm telling you to just give Lazer a chance. A week at least, long enough to get through the adjustment period. Long enough to see if it actually sticks once the unfamiliarity is gone. Unfortunately, if you're a tournament player, Stable isn't really optional. Major tournaments switching to Lazer probably won't happen anytime soon. But that doesn't mean you can't enjoy Lazer on the side while still playing tournaments on Stable. At the end of the day, it's not really about which client is better. It's about whether you're willing to sit through 30 minutes or a week or however long it takes you of slight discomfort for a client that by almost every measure is where this game is headed. Back at the start of this video, I called this the Lazer problem, but maybe that's not quite right. It was never really a problem with Lazer, and it's never really a problem with Stable either. The real problem had nothing to do with the clients. It's just that we, as humans, tend to not like change. But, slowly, one player at a time, the stragglers will become converts, just like I did. After all, we're here forever anyway. Might as well pick the client that's set to be the future.